Hello, everybody. I am Eva Saha. I am a host and moderator with Gotham Artists, one of the nation's premier speakers bureaus, and a proud sponsor of NYPCMA Education Day 2020. And I'm really thrilled to spotlight one of Education Day's keynote speakers and fellow Gotham Artist talent, Kai Kight. So Kai is an innovative violinist, composer, and speaker who has inspired thousands to reach their own creative potential. He brilliantly uses music as a metaphor to empower people and has done so all around the globe and for many of the world's leading organizations, from the Walt Disney Company to PricewaterhouseCoopers to the Super Bowl winning NFL Seattle Seahawks. So Kai holds an engineering degree from Stanford University's design school, and as a violinist has performed in venues including the White House and the Great Wall of China. He's a pretty outstanding guy, and Kai, we are so happy that you could speak with us today.
Yeah, thanks so much for the great introduction. I appreciate that.
It's all you, Kai. All right, so Kai, a lot of artists say that they were sort of born to be, that, there was no other choice. But was there an experience that made you pursue it as a career?
Yes, I started playing when I was just 3 years old. And so for me, I had several feelings or moments, I should say, when I was a kid, when I was a teenager, in which the only time I was, feeling that teenage angst, right? And the only time I felt okay or really at peace was when I was playing music. And then if I look through my childhood, even in times when I was in college, most of the times in which I was kind of in a darker place or something felt like unstable or unsettling, it was because I had kind of gone away from that. I hadn't honored that truth of mine. I hadn't honored that sense of just engagement that I have from music. And so I think different elements of life inspired different people in different times. And so for me, just being in a state of flow, right? Writing music, working on music, and having nothing else matter, that just kind of trumps every other aspect for me in terms of something that I could achieve or create or accomplish. It's just that feeling of engagement. And so I was lucky enough to find that when I was very young, and I've just been sticking with it since then.
Yeah, it's a good lesson to take cues from the world around us, because if we just sit and reflect, oftentimes, the universe will tell us what to do, right? Mm-hmm. But the transition to keynote speaker is not an obvious one, at least to me. So how did that come about?
Yeah, I get that a lot, or it's like not an obvious connection, but for me, it actually was. So one of my first teachers from age 12 maybe to 18, he was an incredible violinist, a Russian man, and he, our lessons, right? I would start playing, I would play for 10 minutes, and then he would just have me put my instrument down. He would put his instrument down, and then he would break out into this long story about how this phrase represents the need to be decisive in life, and how it's the indecision that kind of takes us out of the flow, make that first decision, and then figure it out from there. So like every lesson was like 10 minutes music, and then like 50 minutes just like philosophy and just metaphors from music. And so that was implanted in my brain from a very young age that, okay, I'm playing this music now, I'm aiming to work on this piece, but within this piece of music are infinite lessons that I can apply to other areas of life. And so for me, I knew that I wanted to do something with music. It was a big part of my time. I just knew that that's something I wanted to spend several hours a day with. And so this kind of idea came to me as I realized, oh, this is a natural extension of just how I think about this already, right? Like I don't have to necessarily like try to force this, because I've been kind of trained to think this way because I had a teacher like that from age 12. And so, yeah, I think that's really the foundation of how I felt comfortable in making that jump and found the opportunity for that.
Yeah, so it was natural to you, but you obviously had a great teacher. We all appreciate those great teachers in our lives. Also, was there anything, though, about the process of composing music that has translated into how you create content for your speaking engagements?
It's interesting. This is going to sound contradictory. So they're very similar, but they're actually backwards and antithetical at the same time. So when I'm composing a piece of music, I can't really be around anyone, or I'm just very obnoxious if I'm around someone, because I'm in my own head. I'm singing to myself. I'm picking up on these very internal cues and sounds that I'm hearing. And then I work backwards from there and say, okay, how can I create this on that instrument, But when it comes to creating content, creating this speech, it's the opposite. It doesn't start with that internal. It has to start with questions, curiosity, the group that I'm talking to, what's their experience, what are their pain points, what's happening for them right now, who are they, what does that mean, where have they been? And so I start from an external standpoint when I create that the speaking content, and then I work backwards from there. It's like, okay, well, now that I have that, well, what about music? What experiences as a musician or as a composer parallel to the emotional experience they might be having? And then you can kind of create something that'll be of use to them.
So it really seems like you take your specific audiences and really tailor your approach, which I imagine makes your speeches really captivating and informative. Is that something that you kind of all along the way, you're really trying to relate to those people? And how does that kind of enrich everybody's experiences when you're out there?
Well, right, there's three elements to my work. So there's the music, obviously, so you play, and then there's the storytelling, which is that kind of gets people outside of the context of their day-to-day and transports them to another world, like, right, this parallel world of music. And the most important part is what you just mentioned, which is the translation, right? So often we think that us having like the best ideas or the wisest ideas should let us off the hook for having to actually convey them with kind of clarity for people. So I think a big part of my work, or I know a big part of my work, is like, what's their language? How can I make this simple for them to understand, but also have some profound elements, right? And that takes work, that takes time. And so for me, that is the work, and that's what I spend the most time with is, okay, I have this little insight from, composing, but I need to find the right wording for them, the right wording to translate to their career path, their office place, because that's just as important. It's the same for me. It's the same emotional experience. It's just a different stage that we're on, and so it's a matter of, okay, how do you find that connection, and then how do you make sure that there's no way they can misunderstand what that connection is.
When looking back over your career, I mean, you're a young man, but can you think of other people who gave you some great advice, or maybe it was that teacher?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, one point of advice I got was just to keep going, and it was really simple. And he's a really smart professor at Stanford, actually, like a behavioral scientist, and he was just like, yeah, I would ask him to like kind of give me these hints, and he was just like, no, just keep going. Just keep going. It was so simple. And it was for me, and what he taught me in that was like, okay, I'm looking, especially when I first started, like I'm looking for these other people for answers, but really the only answers that are actually going to help me are going to come from me doing things, taking action, kind of being embarrassed, putting myself out there, and then reading the feedback and being honest with myself around what's happening, and then just keep going, go again. And so for me, that's kind of my approach to advice. There's obviously people I go to around specific things and people who I find to be incredibly wise. But I think for me, my first place to look for advice is, okay, am I taking the action? And am I being honest with myself about what I'm observing about the actions that I took? And if I can start from there, then I know that I'm on a good place in getting, feedback, advice, or just perspective around what I'm actually trying to do.
Yeah, it sounds simple, but sometimes the best advice is really quite simple and it's right in front of you. I know I'm excited. You've already given us some great nuggets, but in addition to what you're talking to us about now, what do you hope that the audience during Education Day 2020 is going to take from your speech?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. So for me, when I hear that question, it kind of reminds me, or it's akin to someone asking what everyone is going to take away from watching a movie. So when people go to a movie, like everyone in the auditorium, they're going to experience a different thing, right? There's going to be a nugget, a moment, a scene that's going to impact them in a different way. And so, yeah, it's interesting as I prepare and put this together. I have two hopes, right? I have one hope. I want to make it a little bit easier for people to manage and embrace change right now. That's one thing as it comes to the events they're creating and all the aspects around that. And then I want to give people a sense of hope around that this time could be not only something we can get through, but positioned to kind of learn, find something more useful for the future. And then I have like the third feeling, which is like, I don't want to tell people what to feel, because I want them to take something away from it. And I want them to apply it. Maybe it's not just going to be to their work, or maybe it's going to be something to challenges of being at home and parenting right now, something that I couldn't predict. And so I think that's part of the fun for me and the fun for everyone is, putting this experience out there, but then also allowing people to take different things from it and allowing them to feel the impact from it in different ways.
I love that. You're going to have universal messaging, but each person is going to be able to experience you and the message in their own way because we are all unique. So that is fantastic, Kai. I want to thank you so much for joining us today. I really personally feel so excited and look forward to your messages of reflection and resilience and reinvention that you seem to have taken to heart. It's going to inspire all of us to move forward while looking back. And I hope to see everyone at Education Day 2020. It's taking place again virtually on November 9th and 10th. See you there. And thanks again, Kai.
Thanks.